Hey guys, greetings. Here for another math video. We're gonna do the second assignment of week 5, where we're going to go over graphs to equations. Again, you see your links, so please don't attempt the assignments until after you've gone and seen the videos explaining all this. We're gonna try to make it a little bit user-friendly for you guys to understand. So, we are trying to go from a graph to an equation. And we're still using the form of y equals mx plus b. What I tell my kids is that honestly, the only two things you're looking for in the graph is your slope, which is your m, and your y-intercept, which is your b. What I tell my students to do is that whenever they have the graph, to basically write the equation of y equals blank x blank. Because the first blank, which is right next to your variable, is your slope, represents your m, and the blank behind the variable is your y-intercept. So this is really simple. All you really have to do is follow these 4 steps you see. To find your y-intercept, you have to look at the line and then find your y-axis, which is the vertical axis right here, and see where your line crosses it and identify that point. And if you look at the line and the y-axis, you see it crosses it at this particular point. Now, how do you know it's a y-intercept? Very simple. Because when you write it as an ordered pair, the first number, your x value, will be at 0 because you haven't moved from the origin. Your y value will be represented whether you went up or down that origin point. In this case, you can tell that the line went up 1, 2, 3. So since it was above the origin, we know that the number, the y value, is positive, and that value is a 3. Believe it or not, it's that easy. You just found your y-intercept, which has a value of a positive 3, which is your first blank that you see right here behind the variable. So now, all we really have to do now is find your slope. Now, if you recall, to find slope, you have to move either up or down for your rise, or right and left for your run. Now, how do you find your slope using a graph? Easy. You need to find 2 points that the line goes through in any single cell that you see from the graph. So since you see the example going from these 2 points right here, to make it easier on you guys, I'm going to use the y-intercept as one of those points, and I'm going to use this point right here. That's the second point they use for the example. And all I have to do is list the directions of how I am moving to get from point A to point B. It doesn't matter what point you start at, but the only directions you can move are up, down, left, and right. My advice is for you to write the directions you are moving, because that'll help you with any possible sign errors and reduction and simplification of your slope. So, I'm going to start from this point right here. In order for me to get to this point, I'm going to move left or right first. You can move up or down, but I'm moving left and right. I know that from this point, I am moving 2 units. I moved 2 units to the right. Because I moved 2 units to the right, I know that my 2 is positive. And I know that that is my run because I moved right or left. So that is my run value. Now, if I look at the ordered pair, or the point that I'm going to, I am going to move up now to reach that point. How many units? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I move 4 units up, and because I move up, my 4 is a positive 4, and this direction is for my rise. So there is your slope. And remember, how do we write slope? If you look at the example right here, rise over run. My rise in this example happened to be a positive 4, and my run happened to be a positive 2. And there's my slope. Now notice that your slope is written in the form 4 over 2, which can't be simplified because technically this says 4 divided by 2. And when you simplify that, your slope is a positive 2. So you write that in your other blank, which is again your slope, which is always the constant in front of the variable. And there you go. And as you can tell, we matched the equation. Now, let's go ahead and do the second example you see in your notes. Following the same steps we just did. Let me erase this here. And we're still going to do the same thing. I'm going to start up with my y equals blank x blank. Step 1, remember I told you to find the y-intercept. Again, if I look at the graph and I look at the line and see that where the line intersects the y-axis, I plot it and I can see that my ordered pair still has an x value of 0. In this case, they went down the origin, so I know my y value for this ordered pair has to be negative. And from here to here, I went 1, 2. So my y-intercept, my b value, is a negative 2. So see, you're already 50% done. Now again, I need to choose 2 points on the line that cross these cells on the graph to find my rise over run, which again, you can see the process here. They use this point right here. And notice how they moved. They went 1.5 points down and they went to the run 3. If I go the opposite way, it's the same thing. I went 3 units to the right. Again, it doesn't matter the way you move. Because I moved to the right, this is positive, and I know that that's the run direction. Now, I am right here, and I am going to go down. So I'm going down, which means that my rise happens to be negative, and I went down 1.5 units. And again, this is my rise. Notice how in this case, these are opposites, but again, by writing these directions, your slope will end up in the correct form at the end. So, if I look at what I did right here for this example, my rise is a negative 1.5 over my run, which is a positive 3. And when you simplify that, your slope is negative 0.5. So your slope is a negative 0.5. Or you can keep it in the decimal form. Again, my recommendation is for you to leave it in this form, fraction form, because it helps you with the directions whenever you have an equation and you want to graph it. This form will help you graph points on the line instead of the decimal form. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at your homework real quick. It's really not that difficult. We're going to do maybe 2 more examples on this video. And like you see, you're matching. All you're doing on your homework is matching. But none of the steps are any different than what we've been doing in the video. So again, we're going to do the y equals blank x blank. Find your y-intercept. So my y-axis is right here, and this line happens to cross right there. And if you look at your homework, that point has a value of 0 for x and a positive 1 for y. So your y-intercept for this letter A is a positive 1. Now, in order for me to find my slope, I need a minimum of 2 points. I have my y-intercept. And I see this point right here on the line that crosses the actual line at a cell right there. Now I'm going to try to move the directions. So I will move 2 units to the right, which makes that a positive change for the run. And now I am going to go down, which means that that change is negative. The change is going to be going down for the rise, and I'm just going to count the number of units that I am moving. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is for your rise. Now, how do you find your slope, your M? Well, M is rise over run, which means that my rise in this case is a -4, and my run is a +2. So I have a -4 divided by a +2, which gives us a -2. So my slope, my M, is a -2 again, which is attached to the variable. And here is your equation for graph A. Okay? Let's do one more and then we'll conclude the video. Let's do E. Okay, same thing. Y equals blank x blank. We'll find our y-intercept first. If you look, this particular line does have a y-intercept, but it crosses it at a very special point, which is the origin. So the y-intercept here in this particular graph is the origin, which is 0. So because it's at the origin, honestly, you don't even have to write it. So this one can actually be just left like that, where the only thing you're trying to find, because you already know, it's understood that the y-intercept is the origin, so you don't have to do anything with that. Now we're just looking for your slope. So that already found your y-intercept. Now again, you're finding your M, which is your rise and run, rise over your run, and you have to find another point, right, that the line is going through, and I see it right there. I find one right there. So now I'm just gonna move the directions. Let's start with this point over here to demonstrate that it really doesn't matter what point you start from as long as you're writing the directions that you're moving. So if I start from this point right here, I moved 1 unit to the left, which means that that direction is negative, and that's for my run. For my rise, I moved down. Oh, having trouble with, oh, that looks like an apple. So for my rise, I moved down, which means that my change is going to be negative, and I move 1 unit down, and that's my rise. And there you go. I've accomplished my destination, so I have my rise over run. So when I write it here, I know that my rise has a value of a -1, and my run has a value of a -1. So if I divide a -1 over a -1, my slope becomes a +1. Now, on your answer choices, you're going to see that they've wrote it in the form of y equals x. And that's technically correct because, again, how many x values do you see? 1. So it's also understood that it's a 1. Now this is a very special function because you'll learn this in the future, called a parent function, because it's a parent function because it's an original. So I really hope you really like this video. We're doing a lot of interventions for you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact your case managers so like that we can get more clarifications on any other things you need. Thank you.